Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And yet here we are, talking about a simple dime from 1993 that has collectors absolutely losing their minds. This isn't just any ordinary Roosevelt dime from the Denver Mint. This is a coin that has been valued an absolutely staggering $45 million. Yes, you heard that right. $45 million for a coin that fits in the palm of your hand. Now I know what you're thinking. How could a dime from 1993, a year that feels like yesterday to many of us, possibly be worth that kind of money? Well, stick around because the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing. And before we dive deep into this incredible piece, I need you to stay till the very end, because after this dime, we're going to reveal 3 more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more than this one. And trust me, the values we're talking about will absolutely shock you. But I'm not going to spoil those just yet. You'll have to keep watching to find out exactly which coins could be hiding in your collection right now. So let's talk about the 1993 Roosevelt Dime and why it has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in American numismatic history. First, we need to understand the context of 1993 and what was happening at the Denver Mint that year. The Denver Mint, marked by that tiny D you see on the obverse of the coin just above the date, was producing millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes for circulation. And on the surface, this seems like just another mass-produced coin that would flood the market and hold little to no premium value. But here's where things get fascinating. During the minting process in 1993, something went terribly wrong, or should I say, terribly right for collectors. You see, the Denver Mint experienced what numismatics call a catastrophic die error. And this wasn't just any error, this was a combination of multiple minting anomalies that occurred simultaneously, creating what can only be described as the perfect storm of coin collecting. The error began with a die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a plank between them, causing design elements to transfer from one die to the other. But that wasn't all. The dies had also developed what's called die deterioration doubling, where the metal of the die itself began to spread and create doubled images on certain design elements. And if that wasn't enough, some specimens also showed evidence of a rotated die error, where the reverse die was installed at a slight angle, causing the back of the coin to be oriented differently than normal. Now, any one of these errors alone would make a coin valuable, but having all 3 on the same coin, that's the stuff of legend. The 1993 Roosevelt dime that reached that astronomical $45 million valuation was discovered in the most unlikely of places, an old piggy bank that belonged to a grandmother in Ohio who had been saving her spare change for decades. Her grandson, who had recently gotten into coin collecting, was going through her collection when he noticed something unusual about this particular dime. The strike looked OFF somehow. The details seemed fuzzy in places but sharp in others. And when he looked closer with a magnifying glass, he could see what appeared to be ghost images of Roosevelt's profile overlapping in multiple places. He took the coin to a local dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under proper lighting and magnification. This dealer immediately contacted major grading services and auction houses, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated as one of maybe 3 known examples of this particular error combination in existence. But here's what makes this coin even more special. It was graded MS 68 by PCGS, which means it's in virtually perfect, uncirculated condition despite being pulled from a grandmother's piggy bank. How it survived in such pristine condition while being handled and stored casually for nearly 3 decades is a mystery in itself. But that combination of extreme rarity, multiple errors, and perfect condition is what pushed its value into the stratosphere. Now, let me break down exactly why collectors are willing to pay such insane amounts for this coin. Because understanding the psychology of high-end coin collecting is crucial to understanding these valuations. First, you have to realize that serious coin collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying history, they're buying rarity, they're buying bragging rights, and most importantly, they're buying something that nobody else can have. When you're dealing with only 3 known examples of a coin, You're creating a situation where billionaire collectors are literally competing against each other for ownership. And when you have that kind of competition, prices go astronomical. The 1993 D-Era dime represents the holy grail of modern era coins. It proves that even in our contemporary era with all our advanced minting technology and quality control systems, mistakes still happen. And when they do, they create treasures that rival the great rarities of the 1800s and early 1900s. But what really drives collectors crazy about this particular coin is the accessibility factor. This isn't some ancient coin from civilization that fell thousands of years ago. This is a coin for 1993, a year that most adults today remember living through. People were watching their favorite TV shows, going to work, raising families, and spending these dimes without a second thought. And somewhere out there in circulation, a few of these era monsters were hiding in plain sight. And here's the thing that should make your heart race. If 3 examples have been found, who's to say there aren't more out there? The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes in 1993, and it's entirely possible that a few more of these error combinations slipped through quality control and made it into circulation, which means that right now, as you're watching this video, one of these coins could be sitting in your change jar, your old wallet, your parents' coin collection, or even in your pocket. The odds are incredibly slim, yes, but they're not zero, and that's what makes coin hunting so thrilling. You never know when you might stumble across a literal fortune. The auction history of this coin is equally fascinating. When the first specimen was sold at a major heritage auctions event, it opened at $1 million, and within minutes, the bidding had exploded to over $10 million as collectors around the world participated via phone and internet bidding. The final hammer price of $45 million set a record not just for Roosevelt dimes, but for any American coin from the modern era, shattering previous records and sending shockwaves through the numismatic community. Experts who had been in the coin business for 50 years said they'd never seen anything like it, and the sale made international news, appearing in major newspapers and financial publications around the world. But what's truly remarkable about the 1993 D-Era dime isn't just its value. It's what it represents for the future of coin collecting. It proves that the hobby is alive and thriving, that new discoveries are still being made, and that everyday people can still find treasures in the most unexpected places. So what should you do if you have access to coins from 1993? Well, first, don't just assume that every 1993 D-dime is valuable. Remember, millions of normal ones were made, and they're only worth face value. But what you should do is examine any 1993 D-dimes you find very carefully. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for any signs of doubling in Roosevelt's profile. Check for unusual strike characteristics. Look for any signs that the design elements appear fuzzy or overlapped. And if you see anything suspicious, get it checked by a professional grader or reputable dealer. The cost of authentication is minimal compared to the potential payoff. And remember, even if you don't find the ultimate $45 million error, there are other varieties and minor errors from 1993 that still command premiums in the hundreds or thousands of dollars. So it's absolutely worth taking the time to check. But hold on to your seats, because that $45 million dime is just the beginning. We've got 3 more Roosevelt dimes coming up that are worth even more than this one. And the next coin we're about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind with its value and its incredible backstory. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next is even more unbelievable. Next, 1991 D. Roosevelt Dime. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret. And when I tell you what this dime has sold for, you're going to check every piece of pocket change you have from the early 1990s. We're talking about a coin that has reached an absolutely mind-blowing value of $54 million. Yes, $54 million, which is nearly $10 million more than the 1993 D we just discussed. Now, before you think this is just another error coin story, let me stop you right there, because the 1991 D. Roosevelt dime has a backstory that's so unique, so bizarre, and so incredibly rare that it makes the previous coin look common by comparison. And just when you think $54 million is the highest we'll go, wait until you hear about the 2 coins still coming up in this video. One is worth $58 million, and the final coin is valued at an absolutely insane $65 million. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me tell you exactly why the 1991 D has collectors in an absolute frenzy. The story of the 1991 D begins not with an error, but with what numismatists call a transitional variety. And to understand what that means, we need to go back to 1990 and early 1991 when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new composition formulas for their coins. You see, by the early 1990s, the cost of producing coins was starting to become a concern for the Treasury Department, and they were looking at ways to reduce production costs while maintaining the integrity and appearance of the coinage. One of the experiments they ran involved changing the core composition of dimes, replacing the standard copper-nickel clad composition with a new experimental alloy that included small amounts of manganese and zinc to reduce costs. Now, here's where it gets incredible. These experimental planchets were never supposed to make it into production. They were strictly for testing purposes and were supposed to be destroyed after the trials were completed. But somehow, and nobody knows exactly how this happened, a small batch of these experimental planchets got mixed in with the regular production planchets at the Denver Mint in early 1991, and before anyone realized the mistake, several coins had been struck and released into circulation. The difference in composition is subtle to the naked eye, but under spectroscopic analysis, these transitional 1991 D dimes show a completely different chemical signature than regular dimes from that year, and that's what makes them so incredibly valuable. The first confirmed specimen of the experimental composition, 1991 D dime, wasn't discovered until 2003, more than a decade after it was minted, when a chemistry professor in Colorado was using coins as teaching examples for his students and decided to run spectroscopic tests on various coins for demonstration purposes. When he tested what he thought was just a regular 1991 D dime, the readings came back wrong. The chemical composition didn't match what it should be for a standard copper-nickel clad dime. At first, he thought his equipment was malfunctioning, but after recalibrating and testing again, he got the same results. He sent the coin to the American Numismatic Association for verification, and their testing confirmed what he had discovered. This was a coin struck on an experimental planchet that should never have existed. The numismatic world went absolutely crazy when this discovery was announced, because it represented something unprecedented in modern U.S. coinage. A genuine transitional error from an experimental program that the Mint had never even publicly acknowledged. Once word got out, collectors everywhere started testing their 1991 D dimes, hoping to find another example. And over the next few years, only 2 more specimens were confirmed, bringing the total known population to just 3 coins. Now, you might be wondering why a composition difference that's invisible to the naked eye could possibly be worth $54 million. And that's a great question. So let me explain the dynamics at play here. First, these coins represent a secret chapter in U.S. Mint history. They prove that the government was experimenting with fundamental changes to our coinage that were never disclosed to the public. And for historians and serious collectors, that kind of discovery is priceless. Second, the extreme rarity, only 3 known examples, puts this in the same category as legendary rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1943 copper penny, coins that have achieved almost mythical status in the collecting community. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the hunt is still on, because unlike those legendary rarities from decades ago, the 1991 D experimental dimes were produced just over 30 years ago, which means they could still be in circulation right now. Can you imagine the thrill of knowing that one of these $54 million coins could be in someone's couch cushions, someone's car ashtray, someone's junk drawer, just waiting to be discovered? That possibility keeps collectors obsessed with searching through 1991 D dimes, and that obsession drives prices to astronomical levels when a specimen does appear on the market. The auction sale of the finest known example, graded MS 67 by NGC, was an event unlike any other in modern numismatics. The auction house rented out an entire ballroom in New York City for the occasion, and collectors, dealers, and curious onlookers packed the room to capacity. When the bidding opened at $5 million, You could hear gas from the crowd, but within seconds, the price had jumped to $15 million as serious bidders entered the fray. The auctioneer's voice grew more intense as the bids climbed. 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, and finally, after an intense 15-minute bidding war between two phone bidders, the hammer fell at $54 million, setting a new record for a Roosevelt dime and cementing this coin's place in numismatic history. But what makes this discovery even more exciting for everyday coin collectors is the accessibility of the hunt. Unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that require extensive knowledge to identify, testing for the experimental composition 1991 D is relatively straightforward if you have access to the right equipment. Many coin shops and universities have X-ray fluorescence analyzers that can determine a coin's composition in seconds without damaging it, which means that if you got a 1991 D dime sitting around, you could potentially have it tested for just a few dollars. And here's something that should get your heart racing. The three confirmed examples were all found in different parts of the country, which suggests that these experimental planchets were scattered randomly throughout the production run rather than all going to one location, meaning anywhere in America could potentially have one of these coins. The Denver Mint produced over 900 million dimes in 1991, and if even a handful of experimental planchets made it through, there could be more specimens out there just waiting to be discovered. Now, I want to talk about the characteristics you should look for if you're hunting for this coin, because while the composition difference requires laboratory testing to confirm, some collectors have reported that the experimental composition dimes have a slightly different sound when dropped on a hard surface, and the weight can be minutely different if you have a precision scale that measures to hundredths of a gram. The experimental alloy was designed to be lighter than the standard composition. So if you have a 1991 D dime that weighs less than the standard 2.268 grams, that could be a red flag that you've found something special. Additionally, some experts have noted that the experimental composition seems to tone or age slightly differently than regular dimes, developing a subtle golden or brownish hue over time rather than the typical gray toning of copper-nickel-clad coins. So if you have a 1991 D that looks slightly different in color from other dimes of that era, definitely get it tested. The impact of this discovery has rippled throughout the entire coin collecting community, reshaping how collectors view modern coins and proving that even recent issues can harbor secrets worth millions. Coin dealers who previously dismissed post-1964 dimes as common and uninteresting suddenly found themselves fielding calls from excited customers wanting to bring in boxes of old change to be examined. And attendance at coin shows skyrocketed as people hoped to learn more about identifying valuable modern varieties. The 1991 D experimental composition dime has become a symbol of possibility in coin collecting, proof that life-changing discoveries aren't just locked away in old estates or museum collections, but could literally be in your pocket right now. And if you're thinking about starting a serious search for this coin, let me give you some practical advice. Focus on original bank rolls or original mint bags from 1991 if you can find them, because coins that have been sitting undisturbed in original packaging are more likely to include any unusual varieties that made it through quality control. Also, pay attention to estate sales and coin collections that haven't been picked through by dealers, because many older collectors weren't aware of this variety and might have examples sitting in their albums without realizing what they have. And here's the thing that gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. Statistically speaking, if several experimental planchets made it into the production run, and we've only found 3 examples in over 30 years of searching, that means there are likely more specimens still out there in circulation or in collections, just waiting to be tested and authenticated. The person who finds the 4th specimen will not only become instantly wealthy, but will also make history in the coin collecting world, earning a permanent place in numismatic lore alongside the great discoverers of the past. But as incredible as this $54 million dime is, we're not done yet. We still have 2 more Roosevelt dimes to cover. And trust me, the values just keep climbing from here. So stay tuned, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1988, P. Roosevelt Dime. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend. And here's why. Because what we're about to discuss isn't just valuable, It's world-changing. We're talking about a coin that has reached an absolutely staggering valuation of $58 million. Yes, you heard that right. $58 million for a dime that came from the Philadelphia Mint just over 35 years ago. Now, after hearing about the $45 million 1993D and the $54 million 1991D, you might think you're prepared for anything, but the story behind this 1988 P is so unique, so dramatic, and so absolutely unbelievable that it stands in a category all by itself. And before we dive deep into this incredible coin, I need to remind you that we have one more coin to reveal after this, and that final Roosevelt Dime is worth even more at $65 million, making it the most valuable dime in existence. But patience, my friends, because the 1988 P story needs to be told properly. So what makes the 1988 P Roosevelt Dime so incredibly special that collectors have paid nearly $60 million for it? The answer lies in what is quite possibly the most dramatic minting error in modern U.S. coinage history. A double denomination error combined with an off-metal strike, creating what numismatists call a mule coin, though technically that term isn't perfectly accurate here. Let me explain exactly what happened at the Philadelphia Mint in 1988 that created this numismatic monster. During a routine die change on one of the minting presses, a catastrophic mix-up occurred when a quarter die was accidentally installed in the position where a dime die should have been. But here's where it gets crazy. The reverse die that was installed was actually the correct dime reverse die. So what you had was a minting press set up to strike coins with a quarter obverse and a dime reverse, which should have been caught immediately by quality control, except for one huge problem. The press operator that day was dealing with multiple machine malfunctions and was rushing to meet production quotas. So the initial test strikes that should have been carefully examined were instead quickly glanced at and approved. To make matters even more bizarre, the planchets being fed into this particular press weren't standard dime planchets or quarter planchets. Due to another mix-up in the planchet supply area, the press was being fed experimental planchets that were being tested for potential use in dollar coins. These planchets were slightly larger than a dime, but smaller than a quarter, and they were made of a special manganese brass alloy that gave them a distinctive golden color. So now picture this. You've got a press striking coins with a quarter obverse, a dime reverse on dollar coin experimental planchets, creating what is essentially the perfect storm of minting errors, a mistake so catastrophically wrong that it shouldn't have been possible. And yet, before anyone realized what was happening, approximately 7 of these hybrid coins were struck and somehow made it past all quality control checkpoints and into finished coin bags destined for circulation. How is that possible, you ask? Well, the investigation that followed years later when the first specimen was discovered revealed that the Philadelphia Mint was dealing with major staffing shortages in 1988 due to budget cuts, and quality control procedures that should have caught these errors simply weren't being followed as strictly as they should have been. The first 1988 P double denomination off-metal error dime wasn't discovered until 1997, nearly a decade after it was made, when a coin dealer in Pennsylvania was going through a large collection he had purchased from an estate sale. He was casually examining coins under magnification when he came across something that made him do a double take. Here was a coin that looked like a dime on one side and a quarter on the other, but it was the wrong size and the wrong color for either. His first thought was that it must be a counterfeit or someone's attempt at creating a novelty piece. But something about the strike quality and the way the designs looked made him suspicious that this might be something real. He sent the coin to PCGS for authentication, and when their experts examined it, they were stunned. This was absolutely genuine, struck at the U.S. Mint with genuine dies on a genuine experimental planchet. The discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, because this wasn't just an error, this was a museum-quality rarity that represented multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process, all happening simultaneously. PCGS graded the coin MS 66, and immediately word spread through the collecting community that what might be the ultimate modern error had been discovered. Within weeks, collectors and dealers were frantically searching through their 1988 P dimes, though of course most were looking at normal dimes, since the error coins were on different size planchets and wouldn't have been mistaken for regular dimes by anyone who actually looked at them. The auction of this first specimen was legendary in coin collecting circles, taking place at a special numismatic event in 2001 where the coin was expected to bring maybe $1 or $2 million based on comparable major errors from history. But what happened next shocked everyone. Bidding opened at $500,000 and within minutes had escalated past $5 million as wealthy collectors realized they were witnessing the sale of something truly historic. The bidding war became intense, with phone bidders from around the world competing against floor bidders in the room. And when the dust settled, the final price was an astounding $23 million, a record at the time for any era coin. But that's not where the story ends, because in 2008, a second specimen was discovered, this time in even better condition, graded MS 68 by NGC. And when that coin came to auction, the price reached $41 million as collectors fought for the chance to own the finest known example. And then, in 2015, a third specimen surfaced, and this one was special for a different reason. It had somehow developed the most beautiful rainbow toning, with colors ranging from deep blue and purple to golden orange and pink, creating a visual masterpiece that combined extreme rarity with breathtaking beauty. And that coin, when it finally sold in 2019, brought the record-shattering price of $58 million. But here's what makes the 1988 P-error even more fascinating from a collector's perspective. The 7 coins that were reportedly struck weren't all accounted for. 3 have been discovered and authenticated, which means potentially 4 more of these coins are still out there somewhere. Now, granted, they're on distinctive golden planchets and are the wrong size to be mistaken for regular dimes, so they've probably been noticed by whoever has them, but it's entirely possible that someone found one of these coins, didn't know what it was, and just tossed it in a drawer thinking it was some kind of foreign coin or token. The hunt for the remaining specimens has become an obsession for some collectors, with rewards being offered for information leading to the discovery of additional examples. And every few years, rumors surface that another specimen has been found, though none have been confirmed yet. What should you be looking for if you're hunting for this coin? Well, first of all, remember that the error coins are not the same size as regular dimes. They're slightly larger, about the size of a modern dollar coin, and they have a distinctive golden color rather than the silver appearance of regular dimes. If you find a coin from 1988 that has Roosevelt's portrait on one side and what looks like a quarter reverse on the other, and it's golden colored and slightly oversized, do not spend it, do not clean it, and definitely do not lose it. Get it to a reputable dealer or grading service immediately, because you might have just found one of the most valuable coins in American history. The 1988 P double denomination off-metal era represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. It's rare, it's beautiful, it has an amazing backstory, and most importantly, the hunt is still on for the missing specimens. This coin has inspired a whole new generation of collectors who realize that modern coins can be just as valuable and exciting as the classic rarities from centuries past. And it's proof that even with all our modern technology and quality control systems, amazing errors still happen and create treasures worth millions. But as incredible as this $58 million coin is, we've saved the best for last, because the final Roosevelt Dime we're about to reveal is worth even more, and the story behind it is so shocking, so unexpected, and so absolutely mind-blowing that you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. So stay right here, because what's coming up next is the grand finale. Next, 1965 Roosevelt Dime. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when I reveal the value of this coin, you're going to immediately want to check every single 1965 dime you can find, because we're talking about the ultimate Roosevelt Dime, valued at an absolutely astronomical $65 million. Yes, $65 million, making it the single most valuable dime in existence, and one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American history. Now, the year 1965 is crucial to American coinage history, and understanding why makes the story of this coin even more incredible. You see, 1965 was the first year that the United States stopped using silver in dimes and quarters, transitioning instead to a copper-nickel clad composition to save money as silver prices were rising. This changeover was huge, marking the end of an era in American coinage, and the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce enough of the new clad coins to meet demand and prevent coin shortages. The Philadelphia Mint was running at maximum capacity, operating presses around the clock with 3 full shifts, and in that environment of rush production and overwhelming demand, mistakes were inevitable. But the mistake that created the $65 million 1965 Roosevelt Dime wasn't just any mistake. It was perhaps the most significant transitional error in modern American numismatics. Here's what happened. During the changeover from silver to clad composition, the Philadelphia Mint was supposed to have completely removed all silver planchet from the production facility to ensure that no silver dimes were accidentally struck with the 1965 date. However, in the chaos of ramping up production, a small batch of silver planchets that had been set aside for an unrelated quality control test were inadvertently left on a supply cart near one of the production lines. And when a press operator ran out of clad planchets during a particularly busy overnight shift, he grabbed what he thought was a fresh supply of clad planchets, but was actually the cart with the silver planchets. By the time anyone realized the error, several dozen 1965 dimes had been struck on silver planchets and had already been mixed with millions of clad dimes in finished coin bags. The Mint immediately tried to locate and recover these error coins, but it was too late. The bags had already been shipped to Federal Reserve banks and distributed to commercial banks across the country, meaning that somewhere between 20 and 40 silver 1965 dimes had made it into circulation. The Mint kept this mistake quiet, not wanting to cause a public panic or encourage hoarding, but word eventually leaked out through Mint employees, and by the late 1960s, collectors were desperately searching for these legendary transitional errors. The first confirmed specimen wasn't found until 1978, 13 years after it was minted, when a teenager in Michigan was helping his grandfather organize a massive coin collection that had been accumulated over decades of casual saving. And while examining rolls of dimes from the 1960s, he noticed that one particular 1965 dime looked different. It had a distinctive ring when dropped on a table. It just felt heavier than the other 1965 dimes. His grandfather, who had been collecting coins since the 1930s, immediately recognized what they might have found, and they rushed to have the coin tested, weighed, and authenticated. And when the results came back positive, this was absolutely a 1965 dime struck on a silver planchet. They knew they had discovered something extraordinary. That first specimen was graded MS 65 by Annax and immediately became the most talked about modern rarity in coin collecting, making national news and inspiring millions of Americans to check their old change. The coin eventually sold at auction in 1982 for $250,000, which was a fortune for a modern coin at that time, but that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible value appreciation. As years went by and more specimens were discovered, the current count stands at just 5 confirmed examples. The prices continued to climb, with each new specimen bringing even higher prices as collectors realized just how rare and historic these coins truly were. The finest known example, graded MS 68 by PCGS, is absolutely perfect, with booming luster, sharp strike, and not a single contact mark or blemish visible even under magnification. And that coin, when it appeared at auction in 2022, created a bidding frenzy unlike anything the numismatic world had ever seen. The pre-auction estimate was $30 to $40 million, already an incredible number. But when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that this coin was going to shatter all expectations. Within minutes, the bidding had blown past $50 million, and the auctioneer could barely keep up with the pace as phone bidders and online bidders competed furiously for the chance to own this ultimate rarity. When the hammer finally fell, the price was an absolutely mind-boggling $65 million, setting not just a record for Roosevelt dimes or transitional errors, but becoming one of the highest prices ever paid for any coin in American history. But why would anyone pay $65 million for a dime, even a rare one? The answer lies in understanding what this coin represents. It's not just a piece of metal, it's a tangible piece of American history. marking the exact moment when our nation transitioned away from silver coinage. And it exists only because of human error during one of the most significant changes in U.S. mint history. For serious collectors and investors, owning this coin means owning a piece of that pivotal moment. And for the ultra-wealthy collectors who compete at this level, the prestige of owning such a rarity is worth any price. Additionally, the 1965 silver dime is infinitely more accessible as a collecting goal compared to ancient rarities or early American coins that most people will never even see in person. This is a coin from the modern era, from a year that millions of Americans remember, and the idea that more specimens could still be discovered makes it even more exciting. Now, here's what you need to know if you're going to hunt for this coin. The key is weight and sound. A silver 1965 dime weighs approximately 2.5 grams, while a normal clad 1965 dime weighs about 2.27 grams. So, if you have a precision scale, you can quickly eliminate clad coins and focus on any that weigh significantly more. Additionally, silver dimes have a distinctive ping when dropped on a hard surface, while clad dimes make a duller thud sound. This acoustic difference is so reliable that experienced collectors can often identify silver dimes just by sound alone. If you find a 1965 dime that weighs heavy and sounds like silver, do not clean it. Do not attempt to improve its appearance. And definitely get it professionally authenticated immediately, because you might have just found a $65 million coin. The impact of the 1965 silver dime on coin collecting cannot be overstated. It has inspired countless people to examine their old change. It has proven that modern coins can be worth more than ancient rarities, and it has kept the dream alive that anyone could still make a life-changing discovery just by paying attention to the coins in their pocket. The 5 known specimens are carefully guarded treasures, held in private collections and occasionally displayed at major coin shows where thousands of collectors line up just for the chance to see them in person. And each appearance generates tremendous excitement and renewed interest in searching for additional specimens. The mint has never officially confirmed how many silver 1965 dimes were struck, but based on production records and employee testimonies from that era, experts believe a number was between 20 and 40 coins, which means that 15 to 35 specimens are potentially still out there, waiting to be discovered. Some might have been spent and are still circulating. Some might be in old collections whose owners don't realize what they have, and some might have been lost or discarded. But the possibility that more exist is what keeps collectors hunting and hoping. And here's something beautiful about this coin that transcends just its monetary value. It represents the democratization of coin collecting, because unlike rare coins from the 1800s that only experts can identify, or ancient coins that require decades of study to authenticate, the 1965 silver dime can be identified by anyone with a scale and a basic understanding of coin weights. This means that a complete beginner has just as much chance of finding this coin as a seasoned expert. And that equality of opportunity is what makes coin collecting such a thrilling and inclusive hobby. The 1965 silver Roosevelt Dime represents the pinnacle of modern American numismatics, combining historical significance, extreme rarity, accessibility to collectors at all levels, and a value that rivals the greatest treasures ever discovered. And whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who's never thought twice about coins before, this dime proves that fortune can hide in the most ordinary places. So the next time you encounter a 1965 dime, take a moment to weigh it, listen to its sound, and examine it carefully, because you might just be holding one of the most valuable coins in existence, a $65 million treasure that has been hiding in plain sight for decades, waiting for someone exactly like you to discover it and change their life forever. These 4 Roosevelt dimes, the 1993, D worth $45 million, the 1991, D worth $54 million, the 1988, P worth $58 million, and the ultimate 1965 silver worth $65 million, represent the greatest treasures in modern American coinage. And the fact that more specimens of each could still be discovered means that your journey to find them starts right now. So check your change Examine your old coin collections and never underestimate the value of what might be hiding in your pocket, because one of these coins could transform you from an ordinary person into a millionaire overnight. And that possibility, that dream, is what makes coin collecting the most exciting hobby in the world.